Welcome to our town council meeting for December 18th. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight we have a very special presentation. It is called the Rock Star Recognition Awards. And I am going to call up our Parks and Rec department to begin the program, and our director, Craig Bowman. Welcome.
Good evening. I don't think I have to introduce myself because everyone knows me in here. So this year our department decided to develop the Rockstar Recognition Awards and make it a yearly annual award to give back to, I'd like to call it, the people that do a lot of stuff behind the scenes for our department, whether they're volunteers, community liaisons, sponsors, leagues, nonprofits, community partners, we like to call them. And this year, this is our first award. And what I'd like to do is, we already did this downstairs, but I'm going to introduce one by one our award winners. I'm going to read a little paragraph about each, and then we'll take a picture. So do you want to come down, or do you want to hang there, or how do you want to do this?
I'll stay here, and then when we do our other part, we'll do a group photo. Yeah.
Outstanding. All right. So our first recipients this year, they are not in attendance tonight. They had their own gathering around the holidays, is Henkel. So for over a decade, the Henkel Corporation has been the Rocky Hill Parks and Recreation Department's longest-lasting sponsorship supporters. Through this partnership, the town has been able to develop and continue providing many of its popular activities and events to the community on an annual basis. Through their generosity, we've been able to enhance some of our summer concert series offerings, our farmers market, our national night out, youth fall soccer, Jolly Jamboree, our winter offerings. But I think one of the things they're most known for is their generous donations to our yearly fireworks at Fall Fest. Henkel they've been great to work with. They always step up to the plate whenever we need their help, and that's why they are one of our inaugural award winners this year. So I know they're not here, but I'd like to give them a round of applause. Next up, we have, actually, this is like his second home, Mr. Ed Ciccarello. He needs no introduction. Everyone knows Mr. Ciccarello. But I think a lot of people don't really know what Ed does behind the scenes for our department. He's a huge piece of what we are able to provide the community. He first got started with the Dividend Pond Trails with volunteering to blaze the trails back in 2012. He's been a volunteer trails manager for our department since 2011. And a little known fact, I said it downstairs before this, but whenever we have maybe some inappropriate graffiti or things like that get painted somewhere, the first guy I call is Ed. And Ed's out there with his bucket of paint covering it up. And people don't know that those things happen, so I want people to know and understand what he does. He has been working with some Eagle Scout groups for some of their projects within our trails at Quarry Park and Dividend Pond. A lot of stuff that from the day-to-day operations of our department, he picks up some of the slack for us. He's also involved in the Historical Society in town, Walk Bike Rocky Hill, the PIC committee. Let's see, what else? Sustainable CT. He also is the sign man. He's responsible for a lot of the signage throughout town and has made this place really nice. And when you walk around, drive around town, A lot of the signage you see was designed and developed by Ed. So if we could give Mr. Ed Ciccarello a round of applause for being a rock star this year. Appreciate it. Next up, we have the Family Chiropractic of Rocky Hill, which is Dr. Sherry. Dr. Sherry Wilson, she has been caring for families for over 20 years. She has extensive training in pediatrics and prenatal chiropractic care. Dr. Sherry opened her Rocky Hill practice in 2020, and instantly she wanted to give back to the community. And one of her biggest contributions to our department has been her involvement in sponsoring our farmers market offerings that we have. We were actually able to expand our markets this past summer to 8. In previous years, it was 5, 6. But with her contributions, we were able to extend the market this year to 8, which is great. We were able to also purchase and give some of the giveaways that we give out at every market. So that's all Dr. Sherry. We're looking forward to working with her in the future, and if you need to get taken care of and cracked up, you need to go talk to her. So, did you bring your business card? But let's give Dr. Sherry a round of applause. And last but not least, this guy needs no introduction as well, Mr. Ron Catania. What he does not only for our community, but for the veterans across this state, I don't think a lot of people realize what he does. If you didn't know, he's a Vietnam veteran. He was awarded the Vietnam Gallantry Cross, Vietnam Campaign Medal, RVN Defense Commemorative, Vietnam Service Medal, and Combat Service Commemorative Medal. So just right there. He's presently employed as a veterans rep for the state of Connecticut. And what he does for our department specifically is he's very involved in our Memorial Day planning for the Memorial Day Parade. He is the one that works behind the scenes with Miss Rita to make sure that the parade goes off without a hitch every year, and it goes off without a hitch every year, except when we're trying to get Tony Herrera to the start of the parade. Thanks, Tony. He also has a strong say in what goes on with our Veterans Day festivities as well. He's an invaluable member of our community. He does a lot that people don't see, and again, this is our department's way of giving back to not only Ron, but the other award winners for everything they do behind the scenes. So if we could give everyone a round of applause. If we could get the awards, I just want to do a photo op, Mayor, if you want to come out in front, and we'll do a photo op with everyone together, and then you guys can get on with your fun meeting. I think the mayor has something else, too.
So on behalf of the town of Rocky Hill, I just want to thank each and every one of you. No, come on up, Ron. We do have proclamations that we want to present as well on behalf of all of us and all of the residents here in town and all of the businesses, because you truly have contributed so much to the success of our community. You've really sent a strong message, and you've set a benchmark for us that every year we will try to achieve. And we hope that you will stay and continue to help us, because your service has been incredible. And we're really, truly grateful. So thank you so much.
police photo bomb?
I ran away, actually.
He did duck.
Very nice.
Thank you, everyone. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
the time.
Thank you. Good job. Could have her do it herself.
Actually, never mind.
All right, now back to the boring stuff. Okay, actually not boring public comment. So this portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Any person interested in providing public comment remotely should email publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov prior to 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting, at which time a link will be provided to attend the meeting, as well as instructions on how to participate. So is there anyone from the public who wishes to be heard? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to appointments and resignations.
None at this time? None at this time as well. Thank you.
Moving on to approval of the minutes A Town Council meeting December 4th, 2023.
Motion to approve the minutes from the December 4th meeting?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Subcommittee reports, beginning with finance.
We had our finance meeting last Thursday, primarily just giving updates on things, nothing overly consequential, but just a few takeaways to share. One thing we've talked about was looking into increased fees for the private duty police department assignments. This is to account for the actual level of officers used as opposed to having a flat rate regardless of what type of officer was used for that duty, and also to account perhaps for use of our police vehicles in such assignments. So they're going to look into that and see if there's anything we want to adjust there. Also, there is as we know, there's Rocky Hill Police Department Special Revenue Account, and they typically use some of that to purchase new police vehicles periodically. And we talked about the idea of considering EVs again. I know we brought this up a few years ago. We thought it'd be time to look at it again. Obviously, this will require a charging station at police headquarters, but perhaps there's some state or federal programs to help offset some or all of that cost. So we're just going to start the process. I know that the lead time for EVs now is much shorter than it was probably about a year and a half ago, so maybe it's more feasible to do something. And lastly, the only real variance of significance when we got the report was overtime was up in a couple of departments, and then due to vacancies in said departments. So there'll be lower expenditures for the full-time positions that will offset the increase in the overtime cost. So that's all for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Government ops.
Government operations was not scheduled to meet since our last town council meeting. We are next scheduled to meet on Tuesday, January 16th at 5 p.m. via Zoom.
Thank you. Public safety.
Sure. So I have a PowerPoint, if you can put that up, please. Thank you. So, Madam Mayor, Public Safety did meet today earlier at 5:30, and we are starting a new way, I guess, to do the report for our council. We are going to do it every month through a executive PowerPoint summary of what we heard in the public safety meeting. So this is the first time. This is a work in progress, but I thank all the chiefs for working with me on this, and hopefully this is something which helps our residents distill what we do at public safety and how our departments are doing in town, and all the good work they are able to do. So hopefully this is something which we can continue and inform the public. So the first slide, if you can move to the PD, we'll start with PD. And for PD, the call responses, they have been pretty consistent. They have been like the 3,000 range, and we'll see a chart in the next slide. But that tracks very well with the monthly numbers they have been reporting for last several years. And I think the criminal arrests are also in line, a little bit lower. Recruiting and hiring, which has been really a lot of the focus for the last couple of years with a lot of activity going on in town. We have 3 conditional offers coming online. One is the SRO, 2 are the backfills for the chief who left last year, and that will be the backfill. And then one new officer is going to be recruited. That conditional officer is filling up the role of an officer who left for East Hartford Police Force. So in some support services, administrative requests, this has been a hot topic for our town, like PD or otherwise, getting a lot of FOIA requests. And again, PD is not immune to that. They are getting a lot of FOIA requests and freedom of information requests in like court cases which are out there pending and stuff like that. And it all adds up. So we have started to track that. The chief is happy to provide numbers going forward, tracking how many of these requests we get on a monthly basis and a yearly basis eventually. But this is a new metric we are tracking because I think these information requests have become quite a burden on, I think, the town employees, and PD is not, like I said, immune to that. Community engagement, as we all know, our police department is very engaged in town, doing a lot of great stuff out there. And for the Special Olympics Super Plunge, they raised $7,000, $7,232, and donated it to the Special Olympics Connecticut. They are also doing No Shave November, raised $1,300, and which was donated to the Human Services. And I think the chief was more than happy to admit that probably those guys are going to stay unshaven for a while because that's a good thing, I guess, and they have a good reason to unshave. Not shave, I guess. So I'm going to show you a picture. There's a picture later in the deck. But on the major investigations and incidents this month, we had the Shell Station and the Route 3 incident, where it's an active investigation, and the PD has not closed that. So we'll hear more about that in coming months, I guess. So moving on to the next slide, this is something we have been doing for a while, but this is just to inform people in a condensed manner, like what is going on from a data perspective. And what we'll be doing is, Ray has agreed that we are going to put this executive deck out there on the website with the public safety packet, and so everybody can look at this at their own time. I'm not going to go through everything on this slide, but I would like to call out that the calls of service, like I said before, they have been pretty consistent from past years. The criminal arrests have been consistent as well, but I would say like they are lower than 2021 and 2022, both of those categories. Moving on to the next slide. So as you can see, like this chart, motor vehicle thefts and thefts from motor vehicles look like a roller coaster on these charts. The top two on the top, the left and the right. The one you have to follow is the green one, which is for the current year. It's like I said, it has been a roller coaster. It's been up and down, but it has been lower than 2020, much lower than 2020, which is great news. It's settling into like that range, I guess, but it still goes up and down, and there are a lot of seasonal effects here, clearly, if you look at that line. Same thing here for catalytic converter thefts have like settled down into a lower baseline level, and I think that's really good news for us. And as you can see, like we are still kind of above the 2020 numbers, but I think we are almost there, right? So I think this was before this was a real problem. Like I think we are settling into a pattern which is much more consistent. So moving on to the next slide, I just wanted to call out this picture which I mentioned, like for the Special Olympics, these brave guys like went out there and plunged in water, like which was probably, I don't know, minus 50. I'm guessing. I don't know, but it seems pretty brutal. I saw some pictures on Facebook as well. I'm sure you guys has seen them as well. So I just wanted to call that out. Moving on to the next slide. This is a summary of, again, like I said, I'm not going to read all the numbers, but this is a summary of the monthly police activity in town. And anybody who is interested can go there and get a snapshot of everything, which I'm not calling out on those previous slides. Moving on to the next slide, this is an executive summary piece of the training. Again, like not a great like visual right now. We are working on it. This is a snip from one of the documents that the PD provided. But the good news here is that we are all in compliance, and we are, which you guys know, we need to keep for our CALIA accreditation. So a lot of these things are important for our police department from perspective of compliance and just continuous training of officers so that they can be part of this community and be truly part of the community and not just like police officers like who are here, right? So it's part of like big community policing effort, and this training is important. That's why we have made this part of our presentation here, because from a monthly basis we'll be producing these numbers. All right, moving forward, the next one is ambulance, and we'll start with Aetna. And Aetna gave us like a lot more charts and Rocky Hill volunteers yet, because they're still working on some of the kinks in their systems. And we will talk about them in like a couple of slides. But Rocky Hill volunteers, ambulance is also going to provide us these charts you're going to see in the next few slides. So let's start with Aetna. And what I want to call out here is most of the calls they get are during daytime, and 94% of them are on time. So that's really good news for us. Average time of response is 6 minutes, 31 seconds, which is very close to Rocky Hill volunteers, which you will see in some of the slides moving forward. The top 5 categories are pretty stable. They have always been stable since I've been on the Public Safety Committee. Basically, falls are a big one, and a sick person, which can mean a lot of things, which goes into that bucket, is the second big one. But the falls are consistent, and it's consistent with like our community here, like who we have in the community, nursing homes and things like that. You see a lot of that. So on the operational side of things, Aetna likes me to call out certain things, and they themselves call them out in their presentations, is like how they work with state legislature and like local municipal leaders, and how they're trying to work with these leaders on an ongoing basis, and on current legislation and things like that. In December, they are hiring like 14 new hires with 11 EMTs and 3 paramedics, and so that's good news. It's something which they want to have a continuous pipeline for. So recruiting is a big focus here. Like you can see, we talked about in PD. So we are going to touch on that every month. Going on to the next slide, this is again this is a visual of just activity, right? So responses, and you can see if you follow the blue line and the green line. The blue line is the current year, and the green line is the average for the last 3 years, right? And as you can see, we are above average, but we are below the 2022 level. So pretty consistent, nothing jumps out here. Pretty stable, I guess, from a demand perspective. So moving on to the next slide. This is the data for cardiac arrest, which constitutes a lot of calls. And as you can see, the green line is the monthly average, and it goes up and down. It seems like it varies a lot. During summer times, it goes up, and it's pretty stable like the fall months, and that's where we are today. And I think nothing like jumps out here as well, mostly in line with the monthly averages, you would think. So if you look at that November line, November bar line, right, which is the 2023, the red line, it's much lower than the average monthly. So they are having a good month, or they did have a good month in November. They don't have the December data yet because we are still in December. So I think those are the things we are trying to track and see like if there are like months where we have more activity than other months, and try to plan accordingly. So that's the purpose of this, really, to plan ahead and plan for personnel, plan for how much time we need to spend from Aetna perspective versus Rocky Hill volunteer perspective. And because, as you know, they share these duties depending on who's taking which call. So more to come on that. But going forward on the next slide. So this slide is just response by call type. Like I said, again, we already talked about this in the first slide, in the executive summary slide. If people want to go and look at the details, that's why I have it in there. If people want to look at trends from the last few years, they are available here. Again, I'm not going to talk about this because people can look at these trends from their home, and if they are interested in historical data. But everything looks pretty consistent with what we have seen in the past. I think the 21 years were a little off, I guess, because of COVID. But I think from a general perspective, I think we would continue to track this, and we don't see anything here which is extraordinarily out of line. Next slide, please. If you go to the next slide, again, these are some of the community events, like I mentioned, Aetna has been part of. Just wanted to give them a shout out. They have been pretty involved in the community with their engagement. And if you go to the next slide, they have also been very engaged with the legislators in and around Connecticut, and conducting breakfast and things like that for them and for their peers as well in the EMS community. So I just wanted to give them a shout out. If you move to the next slide, which is the RHVAA slide, the next one, please. The executive summary here, like I said, the average response time is pretty consistent for RH volunteer ambulance versus Aetna. I think it was about 6 minutes, and change for Rocky Hill, for Aetna, and for Rocky Hill volunteers, it's about 7 minutes, 7 minutes and 11 seconds, which is pretty close. And again, those are the things we are tracking for going forward. And so if you look at this staffing levels, I think that's where we need to kind of focus on. 37 regular members, 4 probationary members, 5 associate members. I think everybody in the volunteer community is worried about recruitment in general. Fire department is doing that as well. So I think this is where I think a lot of focus has been in the past, and to make this a consistent recruiting pipeline. And I think they want to do that. Again, community development wise, they have been engaged in a lot of community events. Especially the Rocky Hill Education Foundation's North Pole Express, which was a super hit. And I think all of our, public safety personnel were involved in this, including the police and the fire. But just wanted to give them a shout out, the Rocky Hill volunteers here, the ambulance service. Moving on to fire, the next slide, please. So the fire, we don't have any charts right now for fire because we have been still building towards it, just like we have been building towards the Rocky Hill volunteer ambulance. So in the next few months, you will see some charts in historical data around the fire department. But I think from the perspective of the work they are doing, I think they have been pretty well connected with the community. We know all about that. The one thing I wanted to call out is there have been no injuries, which is always we try to track that. There have been new gear extractor at Company 1, so they are always looking for new equipment and things like that for gear for safety purposes. So that facilities equipment and health and safety bucket is a big one. We try to keep focus of that. And the second big one, as I already mentioned, is the recruiting one, right? So one prospective fire police member is out there, which they are trying to hire, and then or join the force, the fire department. And then they are doing this Facebook reaching out, I guess. I think we have all seen it. They have this recruitment video, which was done by a local person. And I think they're trying to create some excitement around the recruiting, which is a great thing. I think we do need that. So I applaud them for getting out of, doing some out of the box thinking for for 2024, I guess, which is awesome. Moving on, again, these slides will be available out there on the town website with the packet. So anybody who wants to look at like this condensed version of the public safety packet can look at that. So last but not the least, we have the health district where Charlie Brown actually talked about the influenza and like how it has been like it's influenza season basically, and I think we need to be all careful about like to wash our hands and do things which basically will keep you like more sanitized and out of the problems, right? Easier said than done. We all know that, but as you can track, again, the idea is like if you track the numbers here, the blue line. That's the 5-year line, and the 2023 we had actually a very high November, so it was like 218 cases, which was higher than the average for the last 5 years for November. But I think for the rest of the months, I think it's pretty. It kind of tracks very well with the monthly averages. So I think this is this is what we are trying to do. We are trying to bring in some kind of like, distillation of all the stuff which goes on in the public safety meetings and bring it to the public in a way where like actually this is news you can use, hopefully. So I think that's all we have got today. Like I said, this report is going to be out there on the website with the packet. So look at it at your own convenience. And that's the report, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Senior Liaison.
Senior Liaison meets quarterly. Our next meeting is January 22nd.
Land Acquisition and Farmland Preservation.
We didn't meet last month, but we are scheduled for the 27th of this month.
Liaison to the State Rep and the State Senator.
So I have a couple of updates from Representative Wood. First, Rock Hill Weathersfield were awarded $624,000 for the Silestine Highway from the Safe Streets for All grant program. She wanted to note this comes on the heels of recent serious accidents on that road. The Putnam Bridge bike walk trail is expected to open late April, early May timeframe. Representative Wood will send along an update once they have an exact date confirmed. And lastly, Jody Hill Lilly is the new commissioner of DCF, taking the place of former Commissioner Vanessa Durantes, who has stepped down. And from Senator Lester, I did not receive a response to my email last Thursday requesting any updates, so I have nothing. Thank you.
School Liaison.
Yeah, I would just like to emphasize one more time that the budget season is coming pretty quickly, and as you all know, at least in this room, and for the benefit of people out there, I think if you want to be close to the school budget, the budget meetings are going to be in January, late January. After the 15th, there are going to be 3 meetings out there, which I would highly encourage people to look or watch, look for like at least at least the summary of the budget, which I think Dr. Zito does a really good job of doing. And if you can watch the full recording, it's available out there on YouTube as well. So I would really encourage everyone to pay close attention to the school budget. Thank you.
Capital Improvements Committee.
This committee only meets quarterly. We haven't met since the last meeting.
And Economic Development Subcommittee.
No meeting scheduled.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, there is nothing there. So moving on to old business, there is nothing there. And moving on to new business, there's quite a bit. We'll begin with a Meet the Department, Cora J. Belden Library, Mary Hogan, Director. Oh my goodness, you have bags and props. This is awesome. You're a hard act to follow, Mary.
I got a couple golf drops in my pocket.
So I have about 3 hours. We're going to cover 229 years of history.
And they brought food, Melissa. Top that one.
Oh, gonna demo those like.
So we actually, a couple of years ago, at the beginning of 2020, we were going to celebrate our 225th year, and then the pandemic happened. So we're celebrating our 229th year tonight. The cookies say 229. They might have gotten a little mussed up and stuff, but you can save those later because we also have other cookies. And then we have enough cookies for the whole group here. So.
I want to eat them now, but I don't think that's appropriate.
You know,
My goal is that you'll find out some things about the library. I'm hoping at least 3 things you'll say, I didn't know that about the library. So that's my goal. The first one that I thought I would mention is that, that you might not have known, is that we partnered with NASA. Years ago, we partnered over the eclipse in 2018 or whatever that was, that big eclipse. I'm trying to block it out because we had the only glasses in town, and we were very popular of trying to have people get glasses. We are partnering again with them, and April 8th, 2024, put them on your calendar. You can all have your glasses ahead of time. We are also working with NASA in that we're going to get some Mylar tents and things like that, so not everybody's going to need glasses. That was several years ago, everybody just sort of needed glasses. But we love this partnership with NASA, and they provide us these free glasses. It was a washout. They have 2 dates on there, but the last one was a washout. The next one, is really going to be based in Vermont, but I've heard if you don't have your hotel reservations in Vermont, you're not going to find it. But hopefully in Rocky Hill, we will see this. So actually, IT has to help me how I push the button here to move it forward. Oh, got it. All right, so we are going to go through 229 years of history. We actually celebrated our anniversary on December 11th, 1794. A group of people got together in the Stepney Parish, sent a man on horseback, and got books, and that was the beginning of the library. So we're considered the oldest continually operated library in Connecticut. I mean, we can say that, and we do, but there could be somebody else out there. Weathersfield actually started 10 years earlier, but they did not stay continuously. So, but they also say because we were part of Weathersfield, they're going to count us. So we kind of debate that. So again, I'm Mary Hogan, the library director. With me tonight is Michael Murphy, the assistant director, and Malia Carlisle, the children's librarian, who just rushed out of music and movement to be here tonight. We also have an office manager, reference librarian, library technicians, and part-time library assistants, who are the biggest help because we are open 6 days a week. We're open 3 nights a week. So it's we really like our library assistants. To review our duties and responsibilities, you all know that we check out books, but we do a lot more. Our collection is more than just books, so that's why we wanted to bring some of our cool stuff, which I'll explain later about what we have. But it's a diverse collection of books, digital resources, multimedia, and other information sources. We provide access and assistance. We answer a reference line, and we answer phone calls, a couple hundred a month of phone calls, people looking for research who can't come in, who will call us over the phone. Or they come in, and we help them. It's kind of interesting. You think everybody in the world has email addresses, but Mike can attest that it's like somebody will come in and say, I don't have an email and I can't do this anymore without an email. And so we have to help people get email addresses. We really see the digital divide between the haves and the have-nots. And Mike spends a lot of time with doing one-on-ones. Sometimes it's easier to do a one-on-one appointment rather than do a class because everybody's at a different pace at that. So Mike does a lot of one-on-ones where this is how you turn on your phone because they now have something more than a flip phone that they wanted to have a flip phone, but it's very hard to find a flip phone right now. So a lot of people have moved sort of kicking and streaming to a smartphone. So Mike does a couple a month now with the smartphones and how to use it, especially with seniors too. But we just think everybody has internet, everybody has computers, and it's not true. So we have 22 computers that are constantly being used, not as much as a couple of years ago, but people do come in every day using our computers, coming in for computer help. Internet access, they come in and use our Wi-Fi, which we'll go talk to IT about fixing sometime, or I know we're on their list to get it better. Programming and events. We offer hundreds and hundreds of events and programs. We'll go over some of the statistics. We are very fortunate to have the Friends of the Library sponsor our events, and all their fundraising goes towards our programs. It is part of our mission to help introduce people to new concepts and ideas, bring people together, meet each other, and we're really happy now that the pandemic is moved on, is that people are coming back in the library and really connecting with each other and looking for places to connect. We support literacy and education. We have a longstanding English as a second language tutors. We provide homework support, and we facilitate lifelong learning. Community engagement, our building is used for meetings, for people to get together formally and informally. I already talked about, we provide technology access, and then services to children. I mean, Malia will attest, that's sort of our favorite part. We love summer, we love bringing in, and then we're really happy the end of August when they all go back to school. But it's really important to us to really connect children and give them the resources that they need and offer in different formats, different ways, and we bring in hundreds of people to our programs, our literacy programs. So that's just kind of a brief overview. I like the picture of the snow. It seems like we aren't going to get that this year. We have strategic plans. We think a lot about what we should be doing and what we do, and so this is our latest one, which we want to provide a welcoming, inclusive space for all ages to access diverse resources, engage with technology, and participate in educational and cultural programs. I'm going to go over our goal number 1 sort of at the end too, but I'll mention it, that we do want to transition as a rebranding effort to Rocky Hill Library within the core J. Belden Library building, and I'll explain that sort of at the end if there's time. Our other goals are diverse programs for all ages. We really try to reach out to different groups to get a whole wide range of programs. Technology, literacy, and innovation. We really try to be the place where you can be introduced to technology. One of Mike's favorite things is the virtual reality, and we have virtual reality for the last couple of years. We had a great partnership with somebody from the class of 1972 who wrote to us and said, I'm looking for my yearbook, it burnt down or something happened to it. And he actually had a really interesting title at the University in California, UCLA, of kind of like technology innovation. So I wrote to him and said, hey, we'll scan the yearbook, and you have a really interesting title. And he is one of the foremost experts on virtual reality for PTSD and seniors, and he got us, with one of those companies that he's working with, a virtual reality headset donated. And so we've been demonstrating that along with our other virtual reality and doing programs. We really see ourselves as not everybody, Mike might say everybody will have VR in a couple of years, right? Maybe? I don't know, we'll see. Yeah. But we're a way to introduce. And we actually, Dunkin' Donuts, they train people in some of the Dunkin' Donuts using virtual reality. So that's how they use the, you make a lot, I don't drink coffee, so I can't say like double latte, whatever, but it's through virtual reality. So we've been a place where people can come and practice and be introduced with it ahead of time so that they, when they start work, they kind of already have tried it, know what it's about and things like that. We also would love in the future to be involved with some vocational training, because you can get certified to be a HVAC using virtual reality, where you go in and you actually fix the air conditioner and things like that. So we're keeping our eyes out on grants and things like that, where we could really be the place where you can come in, we'll set up in VR, and AI are two of our kind of interests that we're keeping. We also want to really work on our green library practices. really are working on diversifying our collection and making sure that we represent all the voices, the diverse voices in the community. And part of our strategic plan, of course, has monitoring and evaluation, which I will get into. The other topic we were told to discuss was budgeting issues. And so I did not have this chart when I handed out the handout last week for your packet, but this really hit home of how much we've really tried to do a lot with a little. And so it shows you, I didn't use anything with full-time salaries because I can't control any of that. Most of it is through contracts, and hopefully Mona will like this chart that I put together. But we've really tried to do a lot with a little. And over the years, since I started full-time in 2008, we have had budget cuts. But as you'll see, it hasn't totally impacted our things. So of all the items other than the full-time salaries, we're actually $81,747 cheaper than what it was in 2008, 9, and 10, and things like that. So I appreciate the council. I think I've held the record for the quickest council budget presentations because it's basically, for all of these things, we've been creative and we've been able to either keep them flat every year or even go down. So I really like this chart to show you. Our postage, because we don't need to do it, it looks pretty impressive that we had a 66% budget cut, but it's just that we don't need stamps, and it wasn't a lot of money. These are all the different budget expenses, and it shows you how much we decreased. Contractual services just went up a couple years ago, and that we didn't have any control on that one. So I do like this chart. So funding cuts. So we have had some funding cuts, but I think we've been able to find other creative ways to do it. Other budgeting issues are tech and infrastructure needs, that we have evolving technology demands, but we're very fortunate with the IT department keeping our computers up and things like that. So we've been able to meet those needs. Equity and access is a budget concern, but we're grateful for the town council for their recent allocation to expand our diversity collection, and that made a big difference. Malia really added to the children's collections, and really our goal is that when children walk into the library, they see themselves reflected in our books, and we were able to really go a long ways with that money, so thank you. And then facilities. We have to appreciate the town facilities that really kept the library up. It's almost a 60-year-old building, part of it. The other part is a little bit younger, but over the years we've had new windows, new roofs, new carpets. So we're really appreciative of how the building is kept up. We get a leak, it gets fixed. We get mice, it gets fixed. No. We really appreciate that. I will throw it out there, though, that we have long-range plans for the library. It is a 60-year-old building. It was built to meet the needs of what the library was 60 years ago. The libraries are a little bit different. And so we began long-range planning in January 2020. And we actually had the space audit done February 2020. And then March 14th, 2020 happened. And we actually got this report at end of February, and we read through it and said, oh, this is all nice, but this is really long, long term. March 2020, we pulled this report out, and we went page by page, and over the next 2 or 3 years, we implemented several of the recommendations. And it's also thanks to the council and some other grants that we got. And so we have a meeting pod. One of the issues with the building is that it's this great open space, and people really need a quiet space to have a meeting, to do a Zoom meeting, to tutor. And so we got the office pod, which we love, which is up at the top. We got a phone booth. People come in. We actually had somebody call us from the highway, said they had to do a job interview. So they rushed in and they sat in there and they were able to Zoom a job interview and things like that. So we love that. And then We also implemented radio frequency ID, or RFID, and so we were able to tag 55,000 items, and it was all part of during the pandemic, we started looking at all our processes, and you'd hand a card, I'd hand it back, you'd hand a book, I handed it back, and RFID allows us to be touchless, and so it also allows you to check several books out at a time, and we think that helps people check out more books because they're not doing it one at a time. So this is also a long range that we would love in the future to address the noise issue. The children's room is downstairs, all the noise comes straight up. We have plans to move it, but that will be over the next several years. But what we love about this plan is as money becomes available or as we're making decisions, we go back to this plan, and that's when we said the pod, and that was part of the long-range plan. So we can phase things in. So we're really just being mindful of our finances and seeking collaborations to ensure that the library continues to serve the public for years to come. I did want to mention one of our budget issues is the high cost of ebooks, and there was some newspaper articles the last couple of weeks because there was a hearing at the state library about that. If on our own, we can all buy ebooks from Amazon for $15. The publishers make libraries spend between $27 and $85 per book, and they disappear. So I buy the latest James Patterson book in the hard copy. It stays in the library for years until everybody stops reading it. The ebooks, we buy it. Sometimes they disappear in a year. Sometimes they disappear in 2 years. So it's really a concern for libraries. It's costing us, across the state, millions of dollars. And it's hard for us. It really changes how we do business. I might tell you about a book that I think you're going to love, but it came out 4 years ago, and you want to read it in ebook. I can't really afford to buy it again because I already spent money on it several years ago. So we're really hoping that this state legislature will look into this, hold the publishers accountable for some of this, and really do fair pricing for libraries. We don't want anything other than fair pricing, but personally, I would just like to have us own it more than a year, because really in about 4 years, maybe only 1 or 2 people will read it, but at least we have the hard copy on the shelf, we should have the e-copy. So that's one of our major concerns. All right, statistics, because I love this kind of stuff, is then and now. Back then, from 1794 to the 2000s, you really counted the number of books borrowed and how many people walked in a door. Since the last couple of years, we've made it easy not to come to the library and still get library services. We do ebooks, we do remote programs, we telephone, we Zoom, we have outside lockers so they're not even coming in the building, and we have more than books. So we've really started looking at what we call an estimated library value. And I love this, and I had to really sell Ray on this, but what our goal is that the value that you give us $1 million, approximately $1 million budget, that we turn over more of that value to the town. And so we put a cost on everything that we do, and we keep track of it. And so far to date, we've turned back to the town $828,000 of value. If you did not have a library, this is what it would cost the town. Last year it was $1,961,000 was the value that we turned back. So we of course want to see that number always go higher, and we're not asking for more money. We just want to do a lot more. So as you can see, our golden years was before the pandemic, and we turned back over $2,500,000 to the town in value of the things that we offer, that if you didn't have a library, this is what it would cost. And then you had the pandemic, and we kind of went down, but we are going back up. And it's kind of fun to think of the value. It's just a good way for us to look at it and really figure out where we can improve, what we can do differently, and things like that. So the numbers drive us. We do have some of the traditional statistics, and actually the state library helps us keep track. Since 1996, which is a great date because that's actually the year I started at the Cora J. Belden Library. There was something called the internet, and I didn't learn about it in library school, so I thought I better get a part-time library job to figure out what this thing called the internet was. It's interesting, back then, everybody's like, oh, the internet's going to close down libraries. And now people are saying, oh, artificial intelligence is going to close down libraries. You can see with our numbers, libraries are still needed. We're needed as a place to gather. We are needed as a place for people who can't afford books can do, or you don't want to have 400 books that you read that year because you don't have the space to do it. So there's still a need for the library, and there will be a need for the library in the future. But I am very proud of our circulation. If you look at the first chart, is that you can see that overall we do a lot better than other towns in the area. So we're the top. The middle one is the average of similar sized towns, and then the state average. Library visits per capita, you can see where we all dropped down in the pandemic, but that's why we count more than just who's coming into the door. The percentage of residents with library cards, you can see we weren't doing so good, but that's when we looked at these numbers and we really made it a goal to turn this number around. We finally did get up a little bit higher. We are going down a little lower, but we have some more ideas to implement to keep that number at least above the other towns. And then program attendance and views, we are very proud of our programs. I mean, people want programs, people come to the library for programs. And this, it's the Friends of the Library that support our programs. So you can see that we really have worked on, Mike and Malia are products of who we recruited, because I think Malia can say when she was interviewed, it was programs, programs, programs. We have several children's programs a week, from Baby Bop, from like 0 years, or maybe they come when they're a month old, to the toddlers, to the children. So, and then the adults, the ongoing knitting clubs, book discussions, and we're here if we're doing it because people want it. And so we may change things around when they don't want it anymore, but we are still doing better than the other towns. Our collection size is smaller. That's a result of a couple of different things. One is we did have some budget cuts in the books, but we don't have older books. I mean, if people aren't reading the books, we do tend to weed them, and we're part of a sustainable book program so that they aren't just thrown away, that there's other things that can be done. So I look at this and I try to bring this up a little bit, but we don't really need to go that much higher. I also like to compare, and I'm very competitive, to Berlin, Cromwell, Glastonbury, Newington, and Wethersfield. And so you can see we do better in the circulation, the library visits, the program attendance. We blow the rest of them out of the water. Our visits per, I'm not competitive or anything. Our visits per service hour, program, oops, I deleted, oops. I didn't copy, I had one other one is our ebooks, which we are second, and Glastonbury has a little bit more ebook budget, so they are doing a little bit better, but we'll take that challenge and get after them. So real quick, I'll just go over some of the things that you might not know that we had. Oh, and I have some more cookies that we can pass around. So, the Friends of the Library, so this isn't part of our book budget, but they help us support. It's called the Library of Things. I'll talk here. So one of our most popular Library of Things was an ice cream maker, and so people can check this out with your library card and practice. We like our Library of Things. You want to go over? Yeah, just because I'll stay here talking. It's things that you might want to try. It's fun for the kids. When the third graders came, we showed them, and all the kids were really excited. It's just not something you want in your house for a year, or you might not try to You don't have to have it, but you might have a fun night out with the family and make your own ice cream. Our most popular library thing is a metal detector, so we now have 2. We've had people find lost things because of the metal detector. So this past summer, this metal detector was one of the most popular things. We actually have these things called Tonys, and they are really cool. They are for kids. It is a screenless computer that you can put a figure down on this, and it will read you a story. And so the kids can control the stories and things like that. So we're excited about Tony's. And then we have Giant Games, which I didn't make Mike bring over. And then we also have, Malia can hold up, is our virtual reality headsets. So the one that was donated to us and the other one that the Friends of the Library bought us. The last sort of show and tell is something that we call Wanda, because we have to have a nickname for things. And because we have all of our books are tagged, Wanda helps us find lost things are out of order and things like that. So you'll see somebody at the library going up and down all the shelves, and it will tell us what's wrong with the shelves, where things are out of place, things are there, but we don't think they're there. So it's really gone a long way. We won't bill you for something that you've already returned because we'll have found it and things like that. So we like our friend Wanda. So we really use the technology. So the last thing I just wanted is just that we're looking for feedback. We are really looking at rebranding ourselves. We have been the Cora J. Belden Library since the 1950s. We want to remain as the Cora J. Belden Library building, and this is very important to us. But anybody who comes in and is looking for the library, they're Googling Rocky Hill Library. And we're more than just the building. We are electronic, we are virtual, we are town-wide. And so we really want to rebrand ourselves as the Rocky Hill with the Cora J. Belden Library building. So when Ray asked me a year or so ago to be on the naming committee, I asked him if we could also call it the unnaming committee. But it's not that we want to unname the library. We're just really looking to rebrand ourselves and really say Rocky Hill first, because that's what people think about it. We also have the Cromwell Belden Library, and people are very confused about the 2 Beldens. I did the genealogy. They're 4th cousins by marriage. They never knew each other. So we'll be looking for feedback about what steps, what process. I mean, we watched remember back when SNET changed to SBC Global, you sort of changed like the name. So you're going to slowly see Rocky Hill be bigger and Cora J. Belden Library building be smaller. And as we move forward, we'd love feedback. We want to hear feedback from the community about what people think about really branding ourselves as Rocky Hill first. And then, again, nothing against Cora J. Belden. She was a great volunteer for more than 30 years. And I won't go through my 3rd grade history tour speech, but she was really important to keep the library building named after her, but we just really want to say that we are the town library, we are the library for Rocky Hill, and that way that helps us. So again, we'll be looking for feedback on that. So hopefully I didn't time myself, but I'm happy to answer any questions, but I can also turn the podium over to the next group too.
Jeff has a question, I think. You have a question?
Oh, yeah, I just had a quick question. Thanks for the presentation. This was really good. The virtual reality glasses, so what kind of content? Are you providing the content also that you do on those, or do people bring that themselves? Or?
I'm going to have Mike come on up and
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to come up to the microphone?
Yeah, I bet.
Sure. Yeah, so we've had virtual reality at the library for a good number of years. I want to say we originally purchased an HTC Vive in 2017, so that was like right at the beginning of when VR was sort of becoming popular and people were learning about it. I would say primarily what we've done so far is sort of onboard people and sort of teach them about the technology. So the great thing is that, you know, VR has grown over the years, but in some ways it's reached a period of stagnation. So a lot of times, like for example with the Quest headset, it comes with many programs that are meant to sort of onboard people and come with programs that sort of put you in these virtual environments where, you know, you're picking things up, you're throwing things, you're doing target practice, you're doing all these things, so that within a short 20, 30 minutes people are like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know this existed. This is so cool. Maybe I want to pick up one of these things. So it's been really cool for me because I've demoed VR to people, hundreds of people at this point. We've brought it to Fall Fest and different things over the years. So yeah, so primarily we're providing the software in the sense that we're just sort of, you know, teaching them about a technology that they're not familiar with. And that includes middle schoolers all the way up to seniors and everywhere in between. So hopefully that helps answer the question.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's
Were both of those donated?
No, one the Friends of the Library purchased for us, and the other one is, as I said, was for seniors and PTSD, so it's a lot of travel, so you can virtually go to a lake or a ocean or a mountain.
I mean, I can also mention too it's great to have the two headsets, mainly because the set that was donated very kindly by UCLA is hands-free, and so when you first put it on, it runs you through a tutorial that teaches you how to do it. You don't have to touch anything. You don't have to manipulate anything, because that's really it's very difficult to hand somebody who, for example, doesn't play video games a Quest 2 headset and expect them to be able to manipulate the controls. They've never done joysticks. They've never done anything like that. Whereas the set that was donated, like I say, is hands-free, runs through the tutorial, and is actually controlled by sight. So you actually, you know, point your focus at what you want to select. It selects it, it moves on to the next thing. So it's great to have that. So whereas somebody comes in and I say, hey, are you a gamer? Are you familiar with controllers? Yes, okay, we'll do the Quest. No, otherwise we'll do the other headset. So it's cool to be able to have both. So.
I have a clarifying question, actually. On the library card value side,
Yep.
if you go there, is there a reason you have the data from 7/1/2023 to 11/30 and not the whole year?
Well, because it's only through 11/30 this month. I mean,
No, but it starts at 7/1.
the
oh,
fiscal year.
that's our fiscal year.
Is that your fiscal? Okay.
Yeah,
So,
and-
but
so-
the
and
problem
then
with that
last-
is you can't compare those numbers like very well. Like,
Yeah, so if you look for, here's the 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 22, and 23. And now we're in the half of the fiscal year 24.
I got it. Okay.
So, but it just, this one kind of just shows you, we look at this every month, these numbers, and we do it year to date. And I actually have a bigger spreadsheet because I look what year to date last year
No,
was, but yeah.
that's good. The other question I had was on the ebooks side of things. It says $12, right? I mean, you mentioned a higher number, though.
Well, so we're just saying if you had to buy it from Amazon, it would cost you $12.
But I think you should put the higher number then.
Yeah,
Because your value will go up,
right.
obviously,
Right.
dramatically, and that's the real cost you got.
Well, no. What we're saying is this is saving you. If we didn't have a library, you would have to buy the book, and it's between $3.99 and $20. So it's just comparing the same numbers over a long period of time. They're arbitrary values, but most of the time you can buy a book from Amazon for $12. So or you could go to the Geek Squad for $50, but we're saying you could also go to Mike and it's a value of $50. So it's somewhat arbitrary, but we're saying if we didn't have a library, we weren't here.
Right.
People in Rocky Hill would be spending last year $1,961 to. But yes, I mean we could go up higher and we would.
I was just trying
Yeah.
to clarify because I think it understates from the spend point of view.
Right, but it's more this is the value. point of view. But-
Yeah, for the reader.
Right, right, yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, I did have a question about the ebook. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because I know you mentioned the pricing and all that. Is there some sort of model that the publishers would consider where instead of you buying a book for $80 for a year, that it's strictly a as used, you pay $2 every time someone checks it out?
So some of the publishers have those models. They're called the pay per use. So there's a model called one copy, one user. So you can only, one person can check it out at a time. There's also a pay per use, but they are, it's usually about $2 to $5 per use. There's another program that we could use, but we'd need about $40,000 more to meet the use of what Rocky Hill would use it. So I don't like the paid per use model. It's great for the obscure things that we don't really want to buy, but for the best sellers, we are going to probably check it out 50 times, and we don't want to pay
Right.
the per use.
Is
So-
there a way to do some sort of consortium with other libraries?
So
to
actually, I
build
didn't
that up?
mention, and that's one of the greatest things about libraries. Since the 1970s, we've been part of a library consortium of 30-plus libraries. They do our library system. We share. We're able to share books. We get hundreds of books every week delivered from other libraries, so people get them sooner. And we're part of this library consortium where there's about 40 libraries that we all put our money in together. And so you have a bigger pool of just what Rocky Hill could buy.
But could we get a better pricing on ebooks from
No, I mean,
using that group, or-
they won't work with, I mean, they won't work with us. It's just like, this is the price. But what we do get is that like Windsor will buy a book and we don't have to buy it because everybody can have it in the consortium. So we have a bigger pool.
Okay, so you can all kind of plan accordingly, so
Right,
you're not
right.
duplicating, and then, okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
So.
One more thing on the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just so following up on that. So what you just said, that example of Windsor buying a book, and we don't need to, were you referring to an ebook? I
An
mean-
ebook, right.
Okay, so.
Well, or a physical book, too.
Well, I know
Yeah.
you've been doing that forever. No, I
forever,
understand
right.
that, but yeah, just following up on Councilor
Yep,
V's
for-
question about how that model applies to the ebooks, because I was dumbfounded by the data you gave us about the expense and how they disappear after 2 years. I think that's terrible, and I'm glad to see that you're getting the legislature involved in this, because it sounds like kind of clout that you need to push against the publishers.
That's it's the Connecticut Library Association and Consortium that are really pushing it, and we're so happy that they are. But it is an ebook, so we are part of this consortium of 40 libraries, and we have this one big pool of all these books. It's really good because some of them are obscure, but people want to read them, but maybe not 50 people want to read them. So we have about 30,000 ebooks and about 10,000 audiobooks that people can reach.
And you talked about your program of purging old books that aren't being read that much. So as you're making those decisions, do you look to see what's available in interlibrary?
Yes, yeah. We try not to pull what we call the last copy. So if we
Right.
own the last copy, we won't delete it. We'll keep that on our shelves longer and things like that. But yes, so like I said, we get deliveries 5, 6, 7 times a week of books from other libraries, which really helps us that we don't have to purchase some of these books. So.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask you a quick follow-up question on the same value chart? It occurred to me that while I was looking at it again, that the children's books board is like the value for that is just next to like $50,000 less than adult books, right? So the question I was going to ask you was, clearly people are checking out a lot of children's books, right? So if you rank order this estimated value by high to low, you will find that you should be spending more money on children's books, not ebooks. Just
Right, yes. I mean, in ebooks is just a small percentage of our book budget. I'd have to look, we keep track of what you do.
Does that make sense? Like, what people are checking out is a lot of children's books.
Right.
If you just rank order that thing, it's 547 and 490. The second number is 490 there.
Right.
And so I think if you are prioritizing your budget, just a suggestion, I would look at that.
Malia's happy to hear that. But no, we do have a healthy children's book budget.
Yeah.
But we also have to buy.
Finish, that's the thing.
But the problem with the book, right, the children's.
I know, but if you're going by numbers and where the utilization is,
But
You have
they
a super
circulate.
high utilization on children's.
They circulate quicker than somebody who takes out the latest James Patterson and needs 3 weeks to read it. The
But you're
Diary
right.
of a
I
Wimpy
mean,
Kid.
you have a point there.
They can go quicker, yeah.
But anyways, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mary. Thank you for the goodies. That was a great way to keep us engaged. And the show and tell was incredible. Thank you. And thank you for your hard work, you and your team. And our next department is IT, John Nowakowski, Director.
Do we get a free iPad?
iPads for everyone.
I just want to know, can I wear my glasses the rest of the night?
Yeah.
Good, you did good. Don't worry about that. Yeah, no, we'll do after.
Thank you.
Well, that's certainly going to be a tough act to follow, and I don't suppose Melissa wants to trade spots right now? No, sorry. Sorry, I don't have any cookies or
No
fancy
show and tell, no.
and I've got a lot of boring terminology like data governance and stuff like that, but, it's all necessary functions. So.
Okay.
Are you going to leave the Wi-Fi on? So
Yes, we are. So as far as staffing goes, the IT department for the town is made up of the IT director, myself, and for those of you who don't know me, my name's John Nowakowski. I'm the IT director. I've been with the town for going on 23, 24 years now, all the way from unpaid intern to IT director. My staff, Larry Coviello, he's the IT general technician. Jason Orsini, IT systems technician, and as a lot of you know, John Murphy, the media communications coordinator, and Raymond Roy, our faithful and ever-present presence here in all things Channel 16. So really, when we talk about IT and what we do in the town, it falls under 5 kind of main pillars. Infrastructure, technical services, data governance, there's that term, right? Data integrity and media communications. As far as infrastructure goes, it's pretty straightforward. Like, Mary says, we provide, network infrastructure, Wi-Fi, stuff like that, telecom services as well. So cell phones, Verizon, Cox Cable for a couple of the remote locations that it's just more feasible to get them connected that way. Our own fiber, as well as CEN, which provides our internet connections. We maintain data centers and servers and storage. Pretty classic IT stuff. I mean, nothing I'm sure anybody hasn't heard of before. You've got stuff that runs on servers, and we need a place to store our data. We also maintain a cloud environment. This is something new. We've signed up with Microsoft 365 and their Azure tenants to provide services, modern communications, but we'll talk more about that in a later slide. And of course, all that hardware, software, licensing has to be maintained someplace, and IT is where it happens. Technical services. We do provide hardware support. Let's just face it, if somebody can do something on it, at some point someone says to IT, hey, make it work. It doesn't matter what it is, desktops, laptops, Microsoft Surfaces, mobile phones, IoT devices. Someone was saying, I think the other day, the internet radio up in the town manager's office, they were looking for kind of suggestions on that. So really, IT is gone way beyond just desktop support, right? We also do software maintenance. Town clerk wants a new software package. They go out, they contract. We make sure that environment, server, network infrastructure, whatever usernames, passwords, things like that, all that gets handled by IT. We also do troubleshooting for end user services. So that same town clerk, has a problem with their software, they come to us first. We determine if it's, we do that first level triage. We're going to determine if it's a problem something that we can solve quickly and get them back up and running, or if we do need to engage professional services with that vendor in particular, and bring them in. And AV support. So for those of you who were here a little earlier, got a live demo of the AV support. Busted monitor over there. So that happens. It's not just this room. It's not just channel 16. It's the community center. There's a lot of AV in the community center. We provide support for that. Zoom meetings, right? You want to have a Zoom meeting in a back room or something like that. We've got that cart that basically gives us a mobile Zoom platform. So we do a lot of that. Data governance. So there's a lot of data retention, access controls, how we dispose of things, right? You would think that, data just keeps growing and growing and growing, but we got a computer that's no longer valid. We have to rip out that hard drive, make sure that that data is destroyed properly, right? There are certain things we just don't want getting out. Personal identifiable information, stuff like that. So got to make sure that, we dispose of things properly, but we also make sure that things are retained. We do a lot of that in coordination with Dana's office, Human Services and Legal Compliance. For instance, email. 4 years in 1 day. All your emails stored 4 years in 1 day archived. You may think it's gone. It's there 4 years in 1 day. And what we do with that afterwards is we can purge, but we try and be very careful with that because we certainly don't want people losing something important. But we also have to make sure that we follow certain guidelines. The state librarian sets out data retention records for just about every function in town. While it's up to the individual directors and to do that within their own departments, from an electronic standpoint, especially moving to Microsoft 365, we can control that data and make sure that it's not accidentally deleted as well. Data integrity. Everybody's favorite kind of buzzwords for the last 10 years, cybersecurity. It really falls under, is our data secure? Is it unmodified? Is it trustworthy? We handle a lot of that. That in itself, if you don't have good cybersecurity, you're not getting cyber insurance. Mona will attest to that. We go through that song and dance every year, and it's getting harder and harder every year. What they essentially want to do is now it's just not are you doing it, but how long have you been doing it? Because if you haven't been doing it long enough, you're still a risk, and we're not going to insure you because something may already be behind your walls that we don't know about. So that's why we've been working on this for several years now to make sure that we are constantly keeping up with whatever regulatory security baselines that we have. The National Institutes of Standards and Technology, the Center for Internet Security, and regulatory stuff like criminal justice information. All those established security baselines that we should be following. Several policies that go along with that. In addition to that, we have to look at insider risk management and data leak prevention. They kind of go hand in hand. As I mentioned before, personal identifiable information, criminal justice information, we can't let that get out. Now, cybersecurity says, everybody thinks that's focused on the outside. The attackers are all outside our walls. Unfortunately, that's not always true. A lot of times, the insider risk management poses a higher risk than external forces. We want to make sure that, that user who maybe is disgruntled or maybe he's thinking of leaving or something like that, or, doesn't decide to, hey, I'm just going to kind of download all this stuff and, and dump it someplace and, town's going to get a black eye or something like that. There's lots of reasons why people do stuff like that. So we got to make sure that we keep an eye on that as well. And of course, backup and retention, backup and restoration speaks for itself. And it's just, we back stuff up, but we have to be able to restore it to its original location as well. And media communications. Manage the website, social media, department content change requests, calendar bid postings, news announcements. It all flows through IT. Government access channel, channel 16, YouTube, direct website stream. You know, everybody watching at home right now, that's IT. Manage evening technician, maintain recording archive. You know, Raymond does an excellent job with that. Excuse me. Video production, the mayor spotlight sometimes. You know, we provide those services for anybody who will ask for it. Exterior signs, the two signs in front of the, you know, in front of the fire departments, that's got the sign that's out on the Silas Dean. And general AV support, like I said, senior center, community center meetings, events, we handle it all. As far as plans and projects, you know, our current projects are obviously our big one is Microsoft Cloud Services configuration. We've been working on that for several months now. It's a beast, several screens, several admin settings, several admin portals, actually. We could easily spend another month just configuring that. But we're close to it. We're just about ready to start migrating email over, over to the system as well. Media room upgrades. Excuse me 1 second.
We have water.
I've got one for you right now. Oh, well.
See, for somebody who doesn't like doing presentations, bring this up with you. So I'm going to take this opportunity to let John talk about the media room grants.
Sure. Thank you. I'm John Murphy, again, Media Communications Coordinator. We have an open grant, again, it's PEDIA grant that's administered through Pura. There's an open grant that it closes end of February. We've used it before, that same grant system, multiple times for this room. The last time we upgraded all the equipment to high-definition cameras and high-definition broadcast, everything's in HD. And at that point, we also pivoted. That was right when the pandemic hit, and we adjusted the grant so we were able to then put things in place like the monitors that you see in front of you and having the ability to Zoom people in and out of these meetings. That was something that we paid for through the PEDIA grant. But the new one, there's money available, so I looked at what we could do with this particular facility. And the one thing that we haven't upgraded since the building was built was the audio system. The speaker microphones all seem to work fine. To the users out here, sounds fine, but we're using 4 different mixing consoles in that room. Things are patched together. Every year there's a new technology that has to be folded into the broadcast, certainly the communications, things like that. So I wanted to take the opportunity to upgrade the audio system. And a big part of it is for the operator. Again, with all those controls now, Raymond, or even when we do a lot of trainings, and this room is used for a lot of different things, you know, how do you need the audio set up and patched together? We want to have it now be where it's more like a preset function and not have the operator have to say, well, I need this thing on and this off. And so that's just the audio upgrade. That is an opportunity that's presented itself. We've also, because this executive conference room can be tied into council meetings, you've maybe recently in the past have to go to executive session, but yet there's still somebody in the professional world who needs to be zoomed in. We don't really have that capability to do that seamlessly now. In the past, maybe somebody would just call them on their phone, which is not really the best way to do that. So we think we can justify under this grant umbrella also adding some technology to that room. So we have 2 vendors quoting it right now. We're waiting for those numbers to come in. I mean, everybody is very, very busy. These vendors are very busy. Our main vendor was HP Communications that we worked with for ages. I've worked with them since the 80s. They were absorbed into another company out in New Jersey. So that relationship has been very difficult because they're so far away now. It used to be our engineer guy, his mother lived in Rocky Hill, so he'd be happy to come here and talk to me. So that's been a challenge. And we found another company in Massachusetts that's also bidding on us. And once we have the numbers, I'll put the grant package together. We've never had any problem getting the grant accepted. And Ray would like me to always say there's a no match to that. It's all 100% money. So by the end of February, we should have that wrapped up, and maybe March or April start working on the project. Thanks.
Thank you, John. One other current project, and it should be wrapped up within the next week or so, extending internet service to Academy Hall on campus. I talked to the facilities director. It turns out there's conduit between the buildings, so nice, easy win for everybody. Planned projects, Microsoft, that cloud services, we're going to start piloting Teams, work with modern collaboration, getting away from just Office installed in one place and VPNing everywhere, and being able to use it, wherever we are. Network upgrades, Mary was talking about that. So we have Wi-Fi and switching upgrades at several of the buildings planned over the next few years. Also doing an external risk assessment. Nice for me to say, hey, everything's hunky-dory, but I want somebody on the outside to confirm that. Budgeting issues. Regulatory compliance. The police department right now has safe havens in their cruisers and dispatch. I'm hearing that's actually going to change. We're going to need biometrics to re-authenticate when they're in those environments now. That costs money. We're talking 502 keys, stuff like that. The cost per per device, relatively inexpensive, but when you start multiplying that over 200 users, it adds up quick. Multi-factor auth, same thing, with FIDO keys and stuff like that. That's just all stuff that's just going to keep growing no matter what. And we have hardware costs. Unfortunately, hardware just never goes down in expense, especially the last few years. You hear about companies raking in record profits, and we see costs increasing, just as much. So, unfortunately, it is what it is. We're small, so even if we were to jump in on state bids and stuff like that, we still only get a certain amount of a percentage break on that. Same thing with software and licensing fees. They typically increase annually. And any questions?
Thanks, John, for the presentation. On the hardware costs that you just were talking about, is there kind of a set schedule where you replace every PC every so many years, or has that changed over time?
It has changed over time. With hardware costs increasing, we've unfortunately had to stretch out that time frame. We used to shoot for 20% every year. Now we're down to about 10% every year. So hardware, it just keeps extending that life out. There's always pressure to not increase the budget too much.
So some PCs could get to be 8, 9, 10 years old?
In theory, yes.
Is that a security issue doing that?
As long as they're running supported operating systems, no.
Can they?
But the problem we're going to run into with adoption of Windows 11, Windows 10 is due to expire in the next 2 years. You need modern hardware to run Windows 11, simply because of the requirements on the CPU. So that will become a problem in the future.
Yeah, you can have a phased approach probably on that one, just prepare for the next 5 years or whatever, maybe 3 years, I don't know. Just phase them out, to Jeff's point, right? But one thing I wanted to bring up was the website side of things, right? Is there a schedule where you are updating the pages on a regular basis? Is there anything, maybe John wants to speak to it, John Murphy, but there are some pages which are not updated for a while. I come across them every once in a while. And so I don't know if you're on a schedule, or is that something we can do if we don't do that already?
Part of that is getting engagement from the different departments. And part of that is also, scanning for information that just might not be valid anymore. So an initiative we started this budget was getting some management inside the management software within the website environment that scans for content that may be out of date, out of compliance, ADA stuff like that. But dead links or things like that. So
Yeah.
we're trying to maintain that on a more regular basis.
Yeah, I don't know, like if Ray needs to be, connecting the departments to you. Like, I mean, it seems like you're dependent there on the departments updating their information.
And some departments are very regular about it, and some departments, we kind of say, hey, what do you have going on? Conversely, we're also trying to make sure that we highlight some of the other events that happen in town as well.
Right. I mean, yeah, some of that is connected, really, like that. Okay, but thank you.
John, just, one of the things I think we talked about a little bit during the budget, you're leveraging the Microsoft solution. I don't know if it's cloud. I'm not an IT guy, so.
Cloud's fair, yes.
But a lot of kind of what we're doing is we're using portions of it, but there's other areas potentially we could be utilizing, like through Teams, maybe using their conference calling or phone calling, maybe using Teams instead of Zoom. Have we kind of looked at kind of leveraging the full package instead of using multiple platforms, possibly eliminating telephone service within town hall and doing computer phone service, just kind of outside the box thinking?
And that is still very much in play. As I alluded, there's probably close to a dozen admin portals within the Microsoft 365 environment itself. Trying to roll it all out at once, it just wasn't going to happen. So we're at the point now where the environment's set. We're starting to integrate the email. Then we'll start looking at Teams itself, and then within the next year or two, we'll start looking at integrating, some of the telephony aspects in that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for all the hard work and everything you do for us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night. Okay, meet the department. Human, it's like a game show. Meet the department. Human, Senior, and Youth Services, Melissa Hicks, Director.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. There's some new faces. I am Melissa Hicks. I'm Director of the Human, Youth, and Senior Services. Yeah, do you click away? Thank you. So I'm going to shamelessly, if I may, take a moment and really talk about these three ladies sitting here with me, because our department is small and fierce. And we really enjoy moments where we can talk about, because a lot of people know the basics of what we do. We are in charge of the food pantry. We give out medical equipment. But these three ladies behind me make up a team with me that is unbelievable. We do weekends, we do evenings, we work very, very hard, and we're very proud of the fact that we approach every person in this town as an individual and either find a solution, make up a solution, figure it out. And although I'm going to explain to you on the slides what each of our roles is, it's important to know that as a team, we work together, because anybody that calls the phone or comes to our front desk does not care if our job title is an admin or director or youth services. They're in need of help. And so it's really important to know that we function like that. So our mission statement, is it up? I'm going? So our mission statement, I'm not going to read you. You've gotten our slide presentation. But really, the purpose of our department is to really treat every human being from every age, birth all the way through lifespan, for emotional, psychological, and financial well-being. And you don't always do that by necessarily attacking a problem when it's a problem, but being proactive instead of reactive. And so we as a department and as teams sort of try to approach all of those things. So a lot of what we're going to outline for you is the highlights of what we do and programs that you can put labels and names on, but in between all of that are real human issues that we tackle every day that don't fall under a category or a program, but they arise. And so that really is our mission. So in introducing my staff, there is myself, and you will see our most important member, who is not here this evening. So we are also very proud. We're one of the only towns in the state of Connecticut that does have a therapy dog. Maisie's been with us since she was eight weeks old. She's almost 8 years old. And she's pretty popular here in town with the employees as well as others. So they're usually there to see her, not us, but we're okay with that. So first I'm going to introduce Nicole. Nicole is our admin. Nicole has been here 18 years. Nicole, on top of keeping us very well organized, to a fault, Nicole handles a lot of the initial phone calls, people at the window. Nicole has also, throughout the years, taken on a lot of programming applications. So she directs things like energy assistance. She takes care of the farmers market, or the coupons that come in for eligible seniors to go to farmer markets. She takes care of all of our holiday programming, applications, keeps that organized. She helps connect with community supports that want to adopt families. She also helps with holiday meal delivery, which we do for anybody who is alone on the holidays, and we offer a meal. Invaluable. So I don't always like to use the term admin because Nicole's not just an admin. She keeps us all on her toes. She orders all of our office supplies, reminds us where we need to be, mostly me, but we could not do any of this without her. Lori is our youth services coordinator. Lori has been here forever, 33 years. She started part-time back in our current food pantry when that was the human services department. So Lori heads up all of youth services, and a lot of youth services is state mandated programming, and it's a separate entity in that it's CYSA. So it's all, Lori works very closely with that committee and that board to really work with her colleagues around the state and many of our local, Newington, you work closely with Weathersfield, Berlin, and they do a lot of preventative programs, a lot of vaping and working with the schools. Lori heads up programs such as Cops and Kids, Coalition, new ones this year, which we'll get a little bit into it. Yep, Equine Garden, all kinds of good stuff. Kelly has been here just over a year and a half. Kelly came on as another youth services specialist. Kelly's a social worker. And so when we interviewed for Kelly's spot, we did also explain that though the title is your focus, be prepared. And boy, has she been introduced to that. Kelly's favorite duty is heading up our Fair Rent Commission, but it has been her huge undertaking. We've all worked very hard here in the town to get that program really organized and prepared, and it's been no easy feat, and Kelly took that on. She also helps fill in the gaps. Kelly has worked very closely with Parks and Rec. We've collaborated with several of their programs. We were at Fall Fest. We were just at Winter Wonderland. Kelly will be going back to doing a little bit more youth service things, but she's also brought in some of her own programs. So we've encouraged you to sort of be independent, creative, and you have brought in the Girls Empowerment Group this year that you head up. Kelly has also facilitated I call it a gym, the circus art, into the school system. You brought in Art Explorers program, which has been very successful, so it's very important, and I am very, very proud of the ladies that you see sitting behind me, so they deserve most of the kudos this evening. Okay, ready? All right, so under youth service, human youth and senior services, it's still a mouthful even for me. We are one umbrella department, but those are three major categories. Again, they overlap, but those are sort of our entities in which we work and sort of try to keep our data collection. It does, although overlap, so it's a pretty simple slide because it really is not any more delineated than what you see. So if Lori's in the office, although she's youth services, if she goes to the counter and there's a senior, that's how it's being handled. So we all like to just tout ourselves as the human service workers, which we are. Case management simplified steps. So this is just sort of to depict to you and give you a general idea. We take an approach with every person in town because there are so many programs, and it would be impossible to list to you all of them because we deal with local Rocky Hill programs, statewide programs, and federal programs. So it would be impossible to tell you everything that we do. However, each person that comes to us, we take that as an opportunity to sort of look at the big picture. So we might get a referral from the school system about a kid who is in need of something or not acting right. And come to find out, if we can get that child or that parent to sit down, it might be a financial issue, it might be grief and loss, it might be a mental health issue, it might be all of them. It might be a grandparent taking care of a child. I mean, we have come across a living situation, just many, many facets. So we really try to encompass anything and everything that could be an issue and sort of take a very proactive approach to offer everything to welcome them into the department, get familiar with who we are so that they are more comfortable. And we know that we have provided everything that we could in order to help facilitate their independence and growth and healing or whatever it is that they might be seeking without the need to continue to have to ask for it. So this, I didn't break this down verbally, but it could be home visits, seeing a client at home. We often get a referral. We then meet with them if they can't come to us. Sometimes that involves transportation. If they are homebound, we will go to the home. We will do an assessment with them. So that's gathering all information, not always financial, anything they're willing to share. And from there, we sort of try to make referrals. A lot of those are within our department. But otherwise, and we often as a team will sit down if we're stumped or if we have a very complex family, we will sit down as a team and then we take it outside to our community partners. We could sometimes shoot out an email to colleagues for suggestions, take it up the chain to the state level, and sometimes even federal we have. So the next slide sort of gives you an outline of a lot of what people know of human services. Everything from our food pantry, we do awareness programs. Emergency shelter, we're a big part of the emergency management. We have 3 major parts of that, so knock on wood, that remains relatively calm. We haven't had an issue, but we would be in charge of liaison for mental health, running a shelter, getting supplies, emergency supplies, so would be a big part of that. We often review that as a staff. We do case management. We respond with all our community partners for hoarding, and mental health issues. So oftentimes we do on-the-site psychosocial evaluations. Sometimes that is partnering to help get people into emergency medical needs. Sometimes it's outpatient referrals, and oftentimes, for a plethora of reasons, we are taking on more of those cases. Rocky Hill is one of the only towns that offers our own in-house clinical services, which we're very proud of. Also, some of the reasons that I don't think a lot of people necessarily, not only the obvious inflation and statistics that we all know are going on, but many of the insurance companies that are changing over that are now savings plans and needing to hit high deductibles. We have an alarming amount of professionals, college-educated professionals, but if you have a $5,000 deductible in a family, a therapy session can cost you $150 a week out of pocket. So that is not many people stop and think a $600 bill a month for mental health services are something that is often put to the wayside, especially for parents, and it's not sought out. And so that's where we are stepping in. We offer animal therapy with Maisie. I mean, it kind of goes on. And we provided you the paperwork, so I hope people have questions, but I don't want to read them to you. So statistically, we've pulled this next slide off our annual report that the town council gets a copy of every year. So these are looking at, in these bubbles, the 2022 human service statistics. Again, I'm not going to read them to you, but as of 12/13, all statistics are significantly higher. And I did pull, before I go any farther in this, a couple of just statistics that were up to date, just posted. So according to the inflation tracker, which is created by the members of the Congress Joint Economic Committee, they use the benchmark of January of 2021, and then currently just did a reeval in October of 23. So speaking about Connecticut specifically, the Connecticut annual inflation in a household is $10,720. The cost of is $10,726, which equates the inflation rate is a 13.9 currently in Connecticut. So if you think about most of us that are lucky enough to receive an average 3%, 3.5%, maybe 4 to 5% increase, it's a 14% annual increase. So when we say annual increase, we're talking basic needs, everything from groceries to gas to medical care to housing, and each and every one of those is approaching a real crisis. So our department, first and foremost, has to deal with not only that acute issue, but the downfall from that, the things behind the scenes that happen, meaning a child whose parent is losing a home due to economic hardship then may have an anxiety issue, mental health issue, struggling in school, food insecurity. It trickles down, and most of what trickles down, and I really want to really make clear on behalf of our department and everything that people in our career field do, is that the basis of what we do is really preserving dignity and confidentiality. So because it's not out there and we're not announcing it or waving our hands doesn't mean that we aren't really working very hard to tackle it with very few resources. All right, next slide. I'm looking at mine. I can't see where you are.
No, you're on the same one.
Oh, thank you. All right, so our case scenario, just to give you an example, this is very similar. We've changed the details, but this is a current, relatively accurate. We have currently a 67-year-old veteran living in a hotel here in town. He came to us. We got the referral several times. We did do on-site visits, and he was alert and oriented. On the second or third visit, it was reported that he had paranoia and memory loss. So two of us did go out, did visit with this veteran. This veteran, I can elaborate a little bit, is from out of state and in state, never changed over their veteran, his veteran paperwork. Yeah, so what he received. So he was out of money, severe mental illness, hoarding conditions. We had to hunt down from out of state and find his financial fiduciary, try to receive emergency funding for him. He has no transportation. He had no DD-214 with him, so we've applied for that. That's just an example, one example of one gentleman here in town, but the different agencies, the facets, the work that really goes into preserving and getting him to agree to the visit. We haven't quite gotten there. We're waiting on the paperwork. But, just following up, it's the humanistic side of, we follow up with him. We did deliver a Thanksgiving meal. We will do the same for the holidays coming up. We make regular contact with him. We are in contact with the motel owner who keeps us updated. I mean, the fiduciary still out of state to make sure he has what he needs. Currently, we are speaking to the Rocky Hill Veterans Home. The goal is to get him into the residential care up there, but there's a lot of moving parts constantly, and that's just an example of a very current one of very many situations that as a staff we all take a part of. Youth services. Again, I'm not going to read everything here. Youth services, and certainly Lori can elaborate further. But a lot of what Lori does here is the JRB in town. So if anybody isn't familiar, that's the Juvenile Review Board. The Juvenile Review Board is a committee that's put together by community members. Rocky Hill Police Department can make referrals. That's a program that we are proud of, and it's definitely one of our goals for next year to revamp, and we've talked about really implementing better ways to be more efficient with it. It's a restorative program for any child who starts to get into trouble. That's another area in which, if you don't work in this career field and understand, but our juvenile justice system has really kicked back there's no clout in that, meaning, so we're getting now inundated with referrals and things for truancy. But back when not when I started, well before, but there used to be probation officers for children. They could put an ankle bracelet on. There was consequences, at least on that level. That does not exist anymore. That is on a town level. So for all of our kids post-COVID, dealing with a lot of these issues and struggling to make it to school for a plethora of reasons, there really is no other agency to fall back on now. That referral comes to us and we have one chance. And there is really no consequences to that, nor do we want to see the consequences, but we have one shot to get this kid in the door, to hook them with something that they want to come back, they want to participate. And like many other departments, we're working with very limited funds, which is okay. I mean, we're proud of that, and that's what many human services departments do. And we're very, very lucky to be in a town that has been very generous, and we get a lot of fundraising, but we make a dollar stretch like nobody's business. So really trying to find the niche and where we can help a kid and where we can, and most of the time that comes from our time when the clock ends and the workday runs out. It's, can we mentor this kid? Can we give an example? Can we make a connection and help that kid get what they need, get the services? Can we get that parent in? Can we do it in a way that preserves dignity, that allows them to be safe, to ask for whatever help, and whatever that is, see if we can somehow bring some resolution in some capacity. And that's a big part of what youth services does in after-school programs, reaching kids that would still be latchkey kids, addressing all kinds of needs as far as prevention, drugs and alcohol prevention, bullying prevention, pro-social activities as far as dances and abstinence from substances, and all kinds of a coalition where Lori does a lot of team building and leadership skills that they can bring back to the schools with their peers and pass that on. Cops and Kids, building really good relationships with our local police department so that kids can reach out and see them as assets. Oh, goodness. Okay, we do so much, don't we? So an overview of youth service programs. These are the pictures, just some of them. So on the bottom, that's probably your coalition in the front picture. Then Cops and Kids, and then your garden program. So that garden program has also really, really exploded, and it was smaller. We've had a lot of, one of the awards, Ed Chigarella helps out a lot, but Lori has a great group of volunteers. Mary at the library has stepped in with composting programs and a composter several years ago, and a big component of that, so they pair. And it's really been a great, that food pantry supplies a lot of produce to our food pantry, so kids got involved. I may have known a few firefighters that I got out to build the fence around. Shout out, some of them are watching. Thanks, guys.
And it's all those community service hours that the high school students need, so.
Right.
Lots of checked boxes.
So as far as the same concept with the youth statistics coming off of the annual report from 2022, you can see the numbers, but they are all growing, and I think that you will see a significant jump in comparison when we submit this year's financial or annual report and some of the numbers. As far as senior services goes, I've had a few questions just in the past few days, and we do like to clarify. So we have a beautiful new senior center, and it's thriving and it's very successful. And it gets a little confusing because that department is called Senior Services. So to delineate and help explain to you a lot of what Gina runs down there. Gina has a very flourishing programming as far as socialization, games, exercise, lunch programs, information throughout the day. When we say the part of our department that is senior services, we are servicing any program specific. So Choices being a big one, that's Medicare. That is not necessarily a financially needy senior. That is any senior coming of age who does not understand what they are entitled to for their benefits. So we offer what's called Choices counseling. You have to be certified to do that because it can be relatively complex. We service under that family members, so adult children whose parents are starting to maybe show signs of dementia or need some in-home care. It's explaining and making referrals to assisted living or even higher level of care to nursing homes. It's filling out applications such as AARP. It's the coupons for the farmers market. Thank you. It is anything to do with energy assistance, the housing authority that we assist. It's any kind of benefits, financial need, financial aid, addressing its conservatorship. We do a lot of that now. That was not necessarily a thing in the past, but it has become a thing. So a lot of post-COVID grief, we are actually partnering and starting next month, a monthly group that will be coming in. It's more geared and directly linked with use, but it's family members for any grief and loss who's lost a member or has a member who is actively still using. It is support to grandparents who are now raising grandchildren or helping raise grandchildren because their children, grown children, are back in the home with them. Also another big impact of the economic situation that we are in this country. The holiday meals, we have had that going on for a few years now. And the holiday meals, we often see the most number being seniors because a lot of them are widowed or alone or just unable to cook. But we do provide for 3 major holidays throughout the year. We have our volunteers here in town come together and they will go door to door and they do deliver a meal the day before a holiday so that everybody in town, that is regardless, we don't ask any financial information. I like to plug that every time because we hope to grow that program even further. But it's really looking at that senior as a whole, right? So we don't want to overlap with programs, certainly that Gina's doing because she's, knocking it out of the park down there and it's a beautiful facility. But all the other things behind the scenes, medical equipment closet, we are one of the last ones that exists. They used to be everywhere in every town. They don't anymore. So medical equipment, Medicare will give you, or coming out of rehab, you get a walker, but things that are more expensive and on these fixed incomes, you don't often think about maybe a tray for a senior that rolls, that needs to eat, or a bed rail, things that they have difficulty getting. We do a lot of senior yard cleanups we've had this year that we've paired. We got the Girl Scout troop to help out with that and some other volunteers. I think fire department again. But we work hard to address needs that our dignity. We do have we work with Kim for blight issues sometimes in town, and sometimes that's just an injury or somebody who just needs a little extra assistance. So, we're proud of the little things we tackle because sometimes that has a trickle-down effect. All right, so we mentioned a lot of the effects of post-COVID and inflation. So what we are seeing and the highlights of what we're seeing are increased homeless population. I don't think anybody here who doesn't drive around on the major roads here in town is not aware of the fact that you are seeing homeless populations on Silas Deane, on Cromwell Avenue, more so than ever before, and they exist. And that's just what you see. Domestic violence assistance, certainly we all know that was statistically that was reported more, but that is again on the rise for a plethora of reasons. We don't need to go into all the mental health, but food insecurity for sure, prices of groceries, produce, trying to feed your family healthy has become outrageously expensive. Housing and rental calls, just people looking for assistance in finding affordable housing. Mental health services, currently it's the average wait list for mental health services is 4 to 6 month wait list for anybody, anywhere. And for many people who are on state insurance, it's very difficult to find a provider that will accept it. So substance addiction services, again, waiting rooms. As of last week, there were no open beds for detox. The day I called, that changed on a regular basis, but we are all very well aware and work closely with the Central Connecticut Health District on those statistics. So fentanyl being our newest crisis and very concerning and very scary for all of us. Evictions have been through the roof. Now, some of that is a little skewed because of COVID. During COVID, there was a reprieve for several years. So the state of Connecticut had a hold and no landlords could evict, and then it was a huge influx. So that is one of the things that we are averaging, and we stepped up Joe Lentini from our highway department stepped up and really helped the town purchase 2 storage containers, because historically we used another facility, and I will tell you the amount of money that has been saved. His guys will help do the manual labor to empty those after a 14 or 15-day period if things need to be discarded. But historically, that every one eviction could have cost us up to about $2,000 per eviction, and we've had 25 to 30 or so, more than that maybe, at least so far this year. So if you did that math, our line item used to be, in the last 2 or 3 years, I think $2,500, Mona, right? That would have covered maybe one of those evictions. So in that sense, we've tried to be economic about it, but it is coming fast and furious, and the evictions are really, really out of control. Elderly care, another huge area of concern. Without going into much detail about that, Elderly Protective Services here in the state of Connecticut, which is sort of the mirror state department, we all know what DCF is, for children up to the age of 18. Adult Protective Services covers adults age 60 and above. Everywhere else, there's a gap. And so there is no state agency that offers us help or that you can call or investigates. And not everybody has to be 60 to be abused in some capacity or taken advantage of, which is what Adult Protective Services is, the agency, and what they address. And therefore, it sort of the burden falls on our staff here to help investigate, to educate, to rely on our other departments to help out with, security on the phones or computers the best they can. But elder care and in-home care is cut back. That's not provided under insurance unless you have private insurance and can make a pretty hefty copay. And that is an area that doesn't exist. We currently, last month, Kelly and I were in a home upstairs. The woman is bedbound, has been, no care. And we were concerned for days on end that she had not eaten, she had not been changed, and the bills. And so she had several agencies coming in but could not pay the bill. And so the agency just stops coming. And so what do we do with these homebound people that don't qualify for in-hospital care because they don't need IVs? That's nursing home, 24/7 skilled nursing care. And if you don't qualify for that, but you are homebound or bedbound and you need some capacity of care for hygiene and other things that you cannot afford it, there's very little programming, if any. So that is a crisis. Truancy-related issues, we touch base on that. Lori and I attended a program over in Weathersfield, a talk about statewide, and the name of it was Kids in Crisis.
Kids in Crisis.
Kids in Crisis, staggering.
Connection.
Yeah, well, I think they said 19%. We walked out, staggering statistics. 19% of children statewide are at risk of not graduating from high school. 19%. So assistance with clothing, diapers, that's all part of the economic sort of situation we're seeing in. So I don't want to be doom and gloom here because we do a lot of good things, but sort of a lot of that impact and things that every day people don't want to ask for help or other people don't necessarily see are what we are trying to tackle on a daily basis. So moving on, collaboration with other departments, we really rely on everybody. We rely on residents, we rely on support and fundraisers, but we certainly rely on other departments. So we do mental health consults and responses for Summerscape. So even parents, we work with Parks and Rec that run that department up at the school. We all will go up, do an evaluation. I think there is no question that we're seeing an increase in spectrum disorders and behaviors and difficulty, and so we are in collaboration with those departments to help be proactive this year and create some programming for that and some psychoeducation to the counselors to help with coping strategies. Holiday food drive with schools and emergency services, so almost all of our schools did a big food drive for us this year. That's pretty common, we rely on that. Parks and Rec, so we do Hop Around the Hill. We've really stepped in this year to sort of not only help them, certainly, but really get the word out and get our faces out, because historically, we didn't want to be in the front lines because we didn't want people to feel like if others saw them approaching human services. But really and truly, we are now offering so many pro-social activities, and we really want to engage in that very much like the Cops and Kids and be a community partner so that it's not a negative connotation to come see us, because it isn't. In today's day and age, every single one of us, no matter what your financial status, is running into at least one of these problems, or your loved ones are. And so we're trying to change that stigma and really be a part of, the change. And as a community, let's tackle some of these issues instead of it being an individual. So cultural events at the library, emergency services. So we did talk about this, I think, last year budget. Our department responds with emergency services. So fire department calls, police department calls, building department calls if there's a unit that is condemned, if there's a hoarding condition, any sort of housing crisis. When we had the fire on Glastonbury Avenue, when we had the flooding, any of those issues is where Human Services steps in. Any day, any time, that is when the crisis happens. So I work very closely with the fire marshal, the building department, and all of those emergency services. So also throughout the workday, if they don't need to call us in the moment, they might come back to work the next day and send over a referral because what they saw in the house was concerning, right? Conditions. And so then we take that referral. Going back to the other slide, that's where we often will knock on the door, leave a card, try to get in there and assess the situation, contact police departments, see if there's a log in there, if there's, it starts from that point on. So any type of needs assessment or discussion at the senior center has been often called, not lately, but with the library as well. They often will communicate, very much like Mary just told you, all of her programming and her available computers or whatnot. There's been many conversations amongst us about concerns. Can you come over? Can you provide somebody? We have been down a staff member for a significant amount of time and really, but ultimately, and we would like to get back to, we talked about staging a social worker at the library for a certain amount of time when those people are moving through to make it a little easier to access and maybe in one of those private rooms. So fair rent, packet delivery, and transportation when needed, physical and mental health assessments on ride-alongs. So oftentimes I will jump on the transportation bus with a senior if there is a concern for either hygiene, if they appear confused, if they appear sad, if they're teary or just overly emotional. Oftentimes I will just jump on, do an evaluation, assess. I've been known to do a jig. I've told the town council that during COVID. I literally dance in driveways, so if you drive by, give me a wave. Because we do that with seniors. Anything that we can do to make them smile, to get a connection, get to know their name, their adult children's names, to really get them to be a part of the community as far as coming out of the house or whatever that looks like. It's always changing with that population because sometimes there is a decline and other times it's the opposite. Sometimes we can get them out, we can get them involved down in the senior center, get them a lunch every day, and then we see a change. So. Challenges within our department. I limited it to 5. So lack of relevant software. So there is no perfect software. So before the addition was built on, there was a program we were looking at. We were very supported by the finance department. And then it sort of branched off and reorganization happened. And so we are antiquated in that if you come to our department, we still keep paper files with locked file cabinets. And so inevitably, it's not a must-have right now, but I know there's always a need. But inevitably, I know that the federal program, all the military cards, medical records are changing over. And so anytime we do any clinical assessment, it is considered a medical record. If Lori or I write a clinical note, because we are licensed providers, it is the same rules and regulations under HIPAA, and we are considered medical providers. Therefore, at some point, I think it's important that I start really advocating that we, along with IT and other departments, really get away from the antiquated paper. oftentimes we'll call the PD, they have the CAD system in it, so at some point, we are really gonna have to take a look at getting some sort of a software program that is a little bit more efficient and helpful for all of us in the community and the different departments to maybe be able to access even amongst our department. Separation of transportation services, we are working through that and making do, but we are still meeting the needs of all of our residents despite the time of day. So again, we're proud of that. Increased demand on economy, to meet basic needs. So we already discussed that. It's pretty clear, almost a 14% increase, and that's just this year. If that continues to climb, I don't really have an answer for that other than we continue to do the best we can do, but it is affecting every aspect and every program of what we do. Housing crisis. I don't know what to say about that other than there's a housing crisis. That's not Rocky Hill specific. That's United States specific. That's state of Connecticut specific. There is just no housing. And the more that number grows with people losing housing and the less beds are available, it's not rocket science. It's just, it's not available. It's not available here and it's not available anywhere. And so I will just let you know that there are many times, and again, I feel very blessed and give a lot of kudos because our community is very lucky. Our neighboring communities do not have some of the fundraising events that we have. But I will tell you that those funds sometimes keep people off the streets. The police department has had people sleeping in the lobby because there is no other warm, open place. And so if they call, because we have funds in that account to help those in need, we are able to partner with some of our local in-town motels and put them in a night in a room for a night for a hot shower. We will provide a meal, but inevitably it's a Band-Aid, right? Because the next day when you have to say checkouts at 11, if there is no 211 is the system that we all in this career field are referred to, and yet, if you get through to 211, you sometimes get an appointment a week or two down the road, but 211 doesn't have a magic wand either. There is no housing. And so if you are homeless right now in the state of Connecticut, you have to pray every day that there is an available shelter bed. That is the solution right now in the state. Storage and organizational challenges. So as our programming has grown, we have a bin for everything labeled very nicely, but the bins are piling up. So many of you know through social media, we did the Veterans Box or the Military Deployment Box program. We did over 300, and some of those were stacked in our therapy room up against the wall. Our cubicles are sort of overflowing with holiday programs, but and we're not complaining. We are not complaining about because everybody is cramped, but it is something we need to take under consideration and look at either storage bins we've talked about or cabinets because we store everything from school supplies to we have homeless bags that we keep on hand to give to emergency response or hand out ourselves, but it has toiletries and it has sweats and basic needs that people would need. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily think of, but having all of those things on hand. Our food pantry currently is exploding, which is great, but historically by the summer it'll be next to empty, but it's exploding right now. So there's not a lot of extra room over there, and it's on the other side of campus, but we utilize whatever space we can. But as we get more supplies and more programming, we're getting crunched on space, and so that's an issue. I'm not going to tell you it's not, but that's kind of what we do, or at least the highlights of what we do. We do a lot of good things, a lot of fun things, make a lot of positive. I want to leave it on a positive note because it is, but we sometimes are the department of factual doom and gloom. So,
We take good care of them.
yeah, we do take good care of them. Questions?
I'm curious about your space challenge.
Yeah.
So the space where the food pantry is, that house, you occupy theoretically that whole space. Is that space the equivalent of where your office space is?
Is that space equivalent to our office space? That's probably,
It's smaller?
yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
My mind was wondering if you flipped your model, right? But no.
Yeah, originally it was,
Originally it was there, and then we exploded, and so we had to move the department, and then currently here.
we have office space. I don't want to paint
Oh,
a
no,
picture.
no,
that
no,
we
yeah,
don't.
no.
But, just as we go on, we have the therapy room, which is utilized on a regular basis, and we do have room 4, which is now being booked on a regular. We have support groups in there. Kelly's groups are in there. They're about to start after school stuff. The veterans boxes were done in there, so storage space is just, and I think every department would tell you that here in town. storage space is challenging.
The only question I have for you is, and this might be for later, from a budget perspective, like how much assistance you get from the state. I was just wondering because the amount of stuff you do is just staggering. Like, and I was just wondering, like, how can we as a municipal government like support all of this as it kind of increases exponentially? Like, I mean, like I've been hearing you speak for like 3-4 years now, right? I mean, over
I'm sure,
my stint here
Yeah.
at the council, and I think every single year it does factually gets worse, right? Like all these issues. So I'm just wondering if there is no state support on these things or a consistent and sustainable state support, I should say. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And again, like I don't want to get into the budget stuff right now, but just generally speaking.
Yeah, that's a big question. To answer you, there's certainly opioid money coming down. There's grant money for youth services, but those are very specific. And we're grateful for every dollar, but many of those things have very specific guidelines. They're not addressing our bigger picture, which is imminent basic needs. There are programs. So the state per se does not give us any money. We don't get a chunk of money to do any of this. Rocky Hill is able. We have the fund that we have to supply emergency oil and heat, motel rooms, any basic. That's pretty much primarily what we use it for, and that is not the line item. That is all fundraising. So all of these things, when the police department just did that, all of that money is our special needs. So Mona helps us like divvy that out and keep track of that, but that is our only fund. I can tell you we're so grateful for that, and we have that, but that is, it ebbs and flows. So certainly we didn't use a whole heck of a lot of it for a couple of years during COVID, and thank goodness it built back up again. And that number got very big, but because we weren't helping with down payments or rental payments, and even in then, we have a pretty strict policy here in town, right? You have to prove you're a town resident. And even in that, many times we have to say no, because our policy is if you owe $2,500 for your rent and we have a $500 cutoff, we're not going to put down that $500 if there's not a plan for the other $2,000. And that's really hard to say to people. But even at that point, we have to really preserve. And I say to people very often, I'd rather help you and put the $500 down on a down payment on another place than, because that landlord's going to continue on with eviction anyway, so we can't afford to just do that. So the state itself does not give us a chunk. There are programs. I wouldn't say they're state programs per se, but there is energy assistance through CRT, and people qualify. So we can help fill out applications and get people help if they qualify.
You can direct them to the programs
Correct.
if they qualify.
Correct.
I think that's the way.
Yes.
You can.
But those state programs also run out of money. I mean, I think this year, and I'm not being ungrateful, but we all know what the cost of produce is, and I think that the coupon amounts went up to 15.
No, they went from 18 to
Oh, 18 to
28.
$28, but that's for the entire summer. So each senior that fell within the poverty line got coupons equivalent to $28. We're grateful, but $28 at a farmer's market is not getting you much more than some green beans and a little bit of fruit. It's not getting, and that's for the whole summer.
Yeah,
that's not per month. That's not per visit. That's a one-shot deal once a year. So we're grateful, but renter's rebate we've seen every year It averages about $700 is the average that each senior gets back if they qualify. That's a fund set aside via the state, that program that pairs up with OPI through their system, and they get a chunk of money back. But this last several years, they had so many applicants that it was actually decreased the amount before they sent the checks out. So when you say the state, I think the state is got their own programs. Some get funded, some don't. We work within anything we can get budgetarily and follow those rules. But the actual crisis, and unfortunately when you work in this career field, you know that we're always lagging behind those statistics, right? So I have said this for a couple of years. For a lot of departments, they could take their masks off. And I don't mean town departments, I mean everywhere, right? People could go back face to face, and COVID was getting better. But for us, we knew that was coming down the pike for us. We were bracing because for all of those people who were safe with their rents, who had extra SNAP benefits and had extra food money and all of those things, those were slowly decreased. Kids were still getting lunches in, but we knew as those funds sort of tapered off, which is what we're seeing now. Now is the onslaught. Once the court, evictions can take a long time if they're contested. That is why we're being inundated now. So for us, we are still dealing with the aftermath of COVID very much on a day-to-day basis. And anybody in this career field is.
Well, thank you very, very much. Thank you for everything that you do and your team and your hard work, and we very much appreciate the update.
Appreciate it.
And we
Thank
appreciate
you.
your department.
May I propose taking a 5-minute break?
Or should we just finish?
Well, we're almost done, then we can take a break before executive session, if that's okay.
There are 2 items probably, right? The mayor's report and the town manager's report.
Correct. Can you wait?
Okay. Yeah, let's move on then.
Okay.
Actually, we have item D.
Yeah, that's quick.
Okay.
So Girls with Impact mini program, that's the next item on our agenda. And I wanted to bring that to your attention because there is this really amazing organization which is called Girls with Impact. And they provide girls from the ages of 14 to 24 with free leadership skills. And it is essentially a 10-week course where students can go for 1 hour per week, and they are trained by someone who has an MBA and also lots of real-life experience on how to share their opinions, how to speak publicly, how to be confident, how to talk about money, how to listen to other ideas, and not really be afraid of using their voice, and learning how to come up with a business plan, learning how to suggest things. They actually pitch their ideas as part of this course, and then they receive what is called a mini MBA. So it's a really cool opportunity. It's a free opportunity. And I have, through my other job, my paying job, I've had an opportunity to really see what this organization offers. So I had reached out to Ray to see if we could start this here as a pilot in Rocky Hill as a mayor's initiative. There's absolutely no cost to sign up and take this class, this 10-week class. And the only thing that the town would have to do, and that's why we're putting it on today's agenda, the town through Ray would have to sign a memorandum of understanding. And basically that says that we would help fill a class. And what I would envision is filling that class, because the ages are 14 to 24, filling that class with some of our Rocky Hill High School students, but also reaching out into the community as part of our initiative to sort of help underrepresented folks, and in this case particularly women who have skills, but just don't have the resources to take a class, but they're otherwise gifted to start their own business, or at least to have a model in place when they're ready. And I'd like to open it up to them as well. And so the only responsibility we would have is finding people who have an interest. All of the promotional and marketing material is provided by Girls with Impact. They provide the training, the virtual classes. There's really nothing else that we would be responsible for, except at the end, a little graduation when they receive their certificates. So I have spoken to both the superintendent, assistant superintendent about if there would be interest in the schools. She did attend a meeting and spoke with counselors, and they would be interested in helping us market it. It would be marketed through the mayor's office. And I also spoke with youth services to see if they would be interested in perhaps finding students to feed into this course. So that's something, the next class begins, I want to say February 12th, which is a little tight because we only meet monthly, but I was thinking perhaps offering this during the month of April, or even late March. Any questions?
So do we have to have this memorandum created before we can vote on this, or how does it?
So the memorandum of understanding is a template. It's already created by Girls with Impact. I provided Ray with a sample copy, and so we essentially just fill in the blank that says who we are, and that we agreed simply to help promote, market, and fill a particular class, and then Girls with Impact does the rest. So perhaps what we can do at the next meeting is we can provide you with that sample MOU and a little, well, you can certainly Google it, but we can provide you with a little information, printed information from their website. Okay. Moving on to the mayor's report. First of all, congratulations to the 4 recipients of the inaugural Rockstar Award, which was given out earlier this evening by Director Craig Bowman of Parks and Recreation. So I want to thank Mr. Bowman for creating this award and recognizing folks in the community, our volunteers, our financial donors, because it's really important. Much of what we do in terms of programming is the result of numerous volunteers, and we really want to thank them, and anytime we have an opportunity to recognize them the way Director Bowman has done is certainly, it's a wonderful way to move forward and ensure that we have resources to continue doing what we do. I'd like to thank the social justice group of the Rocky Hill Congregational Church. They recently held a vigil, and I know that a number of members from this council were able to attend, so I thank each of you for doing that and bringing that feedback back to us. And, I know that we have said this before, but it bears repeating, particularly because this is a new administration, and particularly because a few weeks ago we had an incident at Quarry Park with respect to hateful messaging. And so I think it is important just to reiterate that this administration certainly condemns all forms of hatred, no matter what form they come in, no matter the delivery of them. And so I just want to encourage everyone, if you happen to see something, if you're walking on the trails or you happen to notice something in a neighborhood or anywhere, that you please reach out. You can reach out to the police department. You can reach out to the town manager's office. You can reach out to my office. But the most important thing to do is to report that. Bring it to the authorities' attention, because we want to stay on top of those things, and we certainly don't ever want anyone in the community to feel threatened or to feel unwelcome by the conduct of others whose mission is simply to make others feel badly. all the info you could ever possibly want to know about reevaluation is now up on our website. It is under the assessors page in the reevaluation section. On the mayor's page on social media, there is a link. You can click on that link. There are videos that you can watch, or you can look at the actual printed frequently asked questions. I want to thank everyone who attended Saturday's Wreaths Across America. It was a beautiful ceremony, always very touching, and it's remarkable how many folks are involved in that process. I want to say there were like 2 million wreaths that were put out on Saturday at noon specifically. It happened across all 50 states. It happened on land, on the sea, abroad. It was truly very special. So thank you, everyone who was involved. The community farm looks great. We're in phase 1, so we have some really cool not lateral, but aerial shots and some ground shots that were taken by our community photographer, Mike O'Toole. So you can check those out on social media. The barn should be up this spring. And then the next step during phase 2, we'll start to look at plumbing and electricity and all of the things that will be necessary to make that an educational barn. There's also an update on the mayor's page with respect to next steps. One more thing, a big shout out to Parks and Rec. It's been super, super busy for them. They had a phenomenal Winter Wonderland event, and Human Services participated in that. They had the coolest thing where there was this poor kid in a snowman suit, and he got these mushy snowballs, and he just got to pelt them while the person danced and moved around, and everybody loved that. I loved that myself. The North Pole Express was a huge success. A huge shout out to the Education Foundation for bringing that amazing event back, which was very much wanted by the residents, and I look forward to many more years of that. That was their first annual North Pole Express. And of course, a big thank you to the sponsors, who are Henkel, Simonize, Liberty Bank, Westside Marketplace, M&T Bank, and the Rocky Hill Police Union. And that is my report. I will turn it over to the town manager.
Okay. A brief report. Leaf collection is continuing through the rain. It will continue until all the leaves are finished. We have it posted on the website, regarding the running behind schedule with the construction and some of the paving projects, and then some equipment failures, but they will continue until the leaves are gone. As was mentioned earlier, the town and Weathersfield partnered on a federal grant called Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SSFA, to develop a planning, a corridor study for the Silestine Highway from Parsonage Road in Rocky Hill north to the Hartford City line. Weathersfield is taking on approximately 75% of the cost of the project, because most of the work will be in Weathersfield. We're focusing primarily on the pedestrian safety and access near the exit 24 section of the Silestine Highway, under the bridge, under 91, and up through the town line, up to Town Line Road, obviously. There are a lot of people that walk in that area, going from the apartments that we now have and we're getting more of in the Silestine Highway to the restaurants, Stop and Shop, Walmart. So it just makes sense to try to provide more safety for both the vehicles and the pedestrians and the bikes. So that's hopefully what this planning grant will do, is come up with a number of recommendations. The next phase of that would be construction. There was a property sale on Cromwell Avenue for $11 million back in the beginning of the month. 2 buildings, one where New York Pickle Deli is located, the other is where Salute is currently located. Both of those buildings were sold. So Mona is anticipating a conveyance fee that will.
Haven't seen it yet, but yes, anticipating.
She has a space for it on her spreadsheet. CCM is offering a number of workshops. One, they offer every 2 years for newly elected and veteran town councilors. That's coming up in January. It's virtual. Again, it's beneficial for people who are newly elected, also for, just as a refresher course for, those who are already sitting on town councils. Also, they do training programs for all commissions and boards and committees. So we're hoping everyone takes advantage of that, and it's free. In addition to that, I think I mentioned it to our HR director, but Dana will be coming in here to the town council to give this town council just an update on some new procedures for protocols, FOI, ethics, and just regular, normal operations, and how to conduct business. It's always helpful. And CCM is also offering free training opportunities for staff. As you know, we're big on continued training and education for town staff. So I know Dana will be, if she hasn't already, distributed the CCM material to every department head and asking that they distribute that to their staff and look for training opportunities for their staff. Revaluation. Reval notices will be mailed out 12/27. Hearings will be scheduled the first 2 weeks of January with possible additional hearings beyond that, beyond the first 2 weeks. The assessor's website, as was mentioned, has been updated to include the assessor's presentation on reval that you heard at the last meeting, as well as the mayor's interview with Stuart that took place earlier this month. And then the next Meet the Department show will be presented on 1/16 at the next town council meeting. And the participants will be the Community Development Services Department and the town clerk's office. And that is all I have.
Great. So we're going to go on to executive session.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to go into executive session with the town manager, Director of Human Resources and Legal Compliance, and Director of Finance and Operations to discuss records, reports, statements related to strategy and negotiations with respect to collective bargaining.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.